I would like to bring the City of Shelton Commission meeting to order. And the first item on our agenda is a commission report. And we are going to be dedicating or giving a certificate of leadership here for Commissioner Moore. And I'll turn this over to Mr. Dave O'Leary, our City Administrator.
Well, assuming that the commissioners study and attend conferences and go to trainings and that sort of thing, they earn, it's called a Municipal Leadership Award. And they get a certificate of municipal leadership. And Tracy Moore just earned one. And so I'd like to read this into the record for her to acknowledge that. This is the press release that we get out. Commissioner of Public Works Tracy Moore recently received a certificate of municipal leadership from the Association of Washington Cities. Commissioner Moore completed over 30 hours of training credits to earn this distinction. The CML program is designed to enhance the ability of elected municipal officials by providing knowledge and skills to effectively operate within the law, plan for the future, secure and manage funds, and foster community and staff relationships. To earn this certificate, officials attend a variety of AWC-sponsored municipal workshops. Courses help the mayors, commissioners, and council members learn the essentials of municipal service and improve their ability to work with their colleagues, city staff, and citizens. Tracy Moore has served the City of Shelton as Commissioner of Public Works from January 1, 2014 to the present. Commissioner Moore serves on several local boards and committees and always welcomes the opportunity to hear from the public on matters concerning the community. AWC is a private nonprofit, nonpartisan corporation that represents Washington cities and towns before the state legislature, the state executive branch, and with regulatory agencies. Membership is voluntary. However, AWC maintains 100% participation from Washington's 281 cities and towns. The goal of AWC is to create and maintain livable communities and towns throughout the state. So please join me in congratulating Commissioner Moore. I would like to also say that the other two commissioners have also earned.
Yay!
Oh, sorry.
And the photo op.
Here is also a letter from Paul Roberts, the president of AWC, and this is your certificate.
Oh, how do we do this?
Yeah. Good job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yay, I have wanted this since my guckas. Gave me a little motivation.
All right, next on the agenda is our weekly commission reports. We do this to let you know what we are doing out there in the community during the week, and so Commissioner Moore.
I had a meeting this morning with Dave, Steve, Green Diamond, and Barb Atkins, and that is my only formal meeting other than this one and a briefing later this week.
Commissioner Olson.
Tomorrow morning I have a law enforcement and firefighters disability board meeting, and later in the week I'll be meeting with the Mason County Public Health staff on budget preparations. That's my week.
All right, on Wednesday I have an Economic Development Council subcommittee meeting, and usually the first week in the month is the lowest amount of meetings that all of us have, and then we have a little bit more after that. So obviously we have meetings with staff and other things that come up too. But what I wanted to do is during my portion of this weekly report is just to clarify a position I took last week. And it seems to be some misunderstanding out there a little bit on what I was voting for. And I talked to a few people, the city administrator, and tried to get the facts straight on exactly what we are doing. First is I am not opposed to running a new sewer line extension out the Lake Boulevard Road if we have the money to do that, and it's not borrowed money, and it's money that was obligated to do that. But I was not feeling good about it, and the more I looked into it, the reason I had my position was because we were, about a year and a half ago, we made an agreement with the public to raise everybody's water and sewer rates, I think 5% a year for 5 years, or we made that agreement. And in that, the reason that we did that was to pay for existing debt that we had on Basin 5, and also there was some money in there for maintenance and repair, stormwater infiltration into our sewer system. But in my discussions at that time, and I resisted increasing the rates, but I believed that the city needed to at that time to pay its obligations. But nowhere was there in that communication anything that had to do with running a new sewer line. And so what I would say is that I think the $500,000, $408,000, it was taken out of the fund that we have a right to do that. So we have a right to take that money and put that line in. The only problem is that I made a commitment when I voted to increase people's water and sewer rates, that money would go for paying off debt or maintenance repair. And so what we did was legal, we can do that, but the reason I voted against it is because that money should have come from another source, because I believe we were committed in raising the sewer rates that money should go for directly debt relief and also for maintenance repair on our existing systems. So that's why I voted for it. I am not against maintaining our systems, I'm not against paying our bills, but I do know that until we see some real financial turnaround in the city, I'm very resistant to support new infrastructure into outlying areas where there is no contract or definite in-writing agreement. Now, we voted, the issue is done, but because people have brought up issues and said that I'm against something, I had to clarify why I was for it. So I don't believe that was a line item in our sewer budget. If I'm wrong, then if I saw that, then I would probably feel better. But I believe that was in the budget, that was not a line item for that. So that's
part of our rates too were for capital improvements. That was always in the mix of things, and that's what this was a capital improvement.
okay.
So part of our rate increases do cover capital improvements along with debt relief and repairs.
Yeah. So I would take the blame for not being educated enough to know that. I just know from all of my questions at the time and relating to the people that this was necessary for debt relief and for maintenance, that I missed it if we were to run a new sewer line someplace.
I think that's fine. I'm just not sure that this is an appropriate forum for that. We made the decision last week.
Yep.
And I believe that if you will study Robert's rules, one of the things that is inappropriate is to revisit past decisions.
Okay, then we won't do that in the future.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That was our commission weekly reports. And next is a general public comment period. Anybody in the public like to speak? This would be an opportunity to do that. And we have, is that Denise?
Oh, I just signed in. I didn't know. No.
Oh,
never mind.
You didn't have something to speak?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Just got excited. Yeah.
welcome to that meeting.
Okay, just in case.
Yeah.
How's that?
All right. I like that. All right, if there's nobody else like to speak at this time, we can move our meeting forward into the consent agenda. And are we ready for a reading of the consent agenda?
Yes.
Consent agenda. Vouchers numbered 86554 through 86638 in the amount of $326,059.02. Wastewater treatment plant rehabilitation plant and Front Street pump station improvements, Phase 3. Final acceptance work done by Peace and Sons Incorporated.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
So moved.
I second that motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The consent agenda passes. There is no old business today at this time, but we do have something under new business, and that's our Economic Development Director, Steve Goins, going to bring that forward.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. The item I'm discussing is a application for a grant with the U.S. Department of Environmental Protection. And this is a annual brownfield grant. It's a program they've had for a number of years. And the impetus of this grant is to assist with cleanup of brownfield sites. That could be anything from an old gas station to a very large industrial site where there's some contamination. Federal dollars go into assessments of these sites, cleanup plans, and ultimately implementation of a cleanup activity. In this case, this was identified as an opportunity for Shelton, as these are very competitive grants. There's a lot of reason to believe we're well positioned to rank well as they consider these grants. It's a pretty complex grant as well, and because of those features, staff's proposal was to put out a request for qualifications to hire a consultant that would not only help us submit the grant application itself, but as part of being successful, would implement the grant activities as part of their contracted work. The timing of this will be, we hope to have someone under contract by the time, say, early to mid-October, and give them sufficient time to get a grant application submitted for a December cutoff, which is the EPA's cutoff for accepting the grants. We wouldn't know much more until next fall how successful that grant application is. But again, we believe that this could be an opportunity for Shelton to help with some redevelopment of some sites that might be just sitting vacant or underutilized because there's some cleanup activity that needs to occur, and this could help fund some of that effort and get those properties back on the market and working again. Our request, because of the timing of this, is to consider authorizing us to proceed so we can begin the process of getting RFP out and securing this consultant.
Questions or comments?
Now, last week you said that right now there's no financial impact to the city, that the RFP is done. They'll be doing the work for free, essentially, to get this grant.
Yeah, our thought is, in order to attract this in the full we have, that we could request that the funding be part of a lump sum that would be paid out as the grant is secured. I know in other types of arrangements like this, firms have been hired to complete grant applications, and maybe they weren't successful. They would be obligated perhaps to even apply again the following year. We could consider that kind of thing. Another thing I should mention in terms of the grant itself is there's a minimum amount that you can apply for, but you can expand on that if you have a coalition or a partnership. And we have some time to explore that possibility with the Portland County, whether they would be willing to join on as partners in this. We could request a little more funding than we could as an individual making that application as a little entity. So that's another consideration. We have some time to figure that out, but the timing is sensitive because we want to get the RFP out and describe that to some consultants, get some proposals, and get them under contract soon.
And then I was reading along here where it says there's 4 different grant types, so we'd be going for an assessment grant
That's correct.
first.
That's correct.
And then will we have the opportunity, based on the assessments, to go for further grants
Exactly.
on the same program?
Exactly.
Okay. Well, I know of one site that's down there, the old coal oil distributor right down there on Front Street. They'd be prime, right in the middle of the city. It's prime real estate for redevelopment. So I think I like this. Right now I'm leaning for it.
Where's the cold side? I'm not familiar.
Right behind the Mel Shove car lot.
Oh, okay,
that
the
big-
grass.
Yeah, well, there's a big tank still sitting there. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was coal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We had discussed this last week, and Steve and Dave and I, and I am really in favor of going forward and trying to get this grant. I think there is the thought that, you know, do we really want to know? But then there's also the thought that it would allow developers to know exactly what they're looking at when they come in. There isn't an unknown, then they have a site identified, either it is or it isn't a brownfield. And I think it will lead towards cleaning up more of these, and so I'm in favor of it.
Well, I think it has a positive, and then there is obviously the chance that somebody, if we're looking for assessment, then the EPA will come into Shelton, and it will find a number of sites. How many number of sites do you think there is?
If I had to venture a guess, I'd say there's 20 or 25.
And what would be, just thinking outside of the box, what would be is it just an awareness so that the property owner is aware of that, or would there be an enforcement, immediate enforcement if the EPA recognizes that you have a site? Is this a rushing something and on the cleanup of these sites, and then who pays for that? And then, you know, I'm just kind of thinking outside the box here, that is there, because if there's enforcement without money, then that could cause quite a bit of havoc.
I'm not sure whether this is something that the EPA is following up as a way to sort of have an inventory of these different sites. I know in their literature they describe their desire to see the sites cleaned up for the purpose of redevelopment. And the reason we thought this was a good fit for Shelton is because there seems to be a lot of wording that wants to award this to communities where there's some disadvantage, where there's economic constraints. There's different elements that are hindering development from occurring. And certainly one of those has been identified nationally as these brownfield sites, where even if you don't know what the particular issue is on the site, knowing that there is a brownfield tends to turn developers away because they don't want to expend their resources to figure out what the answer is. And if we can help them at least understand the problem and what the answer is, that puts a little more clarity into what could happen or what needs to happen to make property become developable. Whether it's something that's sort of a tool to try to leverage some action on the property owner, I'm unclear.
Okay, well, we have two commissioners that are for this at this time. I probably could be, but I would probably need that one-on-one meeting with you, go back over it, and possibly even a conversation with the EPA. But if we have two votes now, there's no sense in waiting, in moving this forward, I would say.
I would add that this doesn't obligate us to accept the money at this point. We're simply making an application with the thought that we want to hire this consultant on. That does raise the point that if we are successful, I think we would be in a position where we've sort of committed the consultant that we're going to accept the money and take the money. So maybe that's a little different than a typical application process where we would have the ability to say no in the end. In this case, we probably wouldn't really. We're getting in a contract with someone who's putting a lot of effort into helping us be successful.
And I noticed in your notes it talked about in the city administrator to make necessary budget modifications, and then on the other it says, however, there's no anticipated matching funds required. So there's a little maybe, maybe not, and then there's a little consultant, maybe, maybe not, and then can EPA come in and shut down 25 businesses? Maybe, maybe not. That, I mean, that's kind of, you know, if there's enforcement and you have a mom and pop shop that's been there 50 years and they want to do something kind of drastic in their lives, it could be detrimental. But that's just my comments on it.
I grew up in a city in Montana that was a Superfund site because of the very reason you're kind of alluding to, that let's bury our heads and not address it, and in the meantime thousands of people died and had caught cancer from it. And they were given the same choice. Do we want to look into this, or do we want to just pretend it's not here? And the company, which was a nationally known corporation, of course, lobbied against this for the same reasons you're saying, to scare everybody with, shutting down economic development. Well, I don't think we're doing our future generations the right service if we don't address Superfund sites or even small brownfields. I mean, that's what we're here as leaders for, is to, make our community sustainable. And if we're going to just bury our heads and ignore it and let the next generation deal with it, I just don't feel that's the right thing to do. So that's why I'm in full support of moving on this, good or bad. It's what we're supposed to do.
And one thing, I would not recommend burying our heads in a brownfield.
Steve, so if we had, like on a vacant piece of property that we suspect is a brownfield, and someone came in and wanted to develop that, they would have to pay for this assessment, right?
Well, what typically would happen is they would hire a consultant to do a phase 1 and probably a phase 2 report on that land to find out what maybe historically happened there, if there's some tanks underground or whatever's going on, and better understand if there is a problem on the site, and if there is, what would it take to clean that up. What this would do is would use grant money to help pay for some of that study, so that someone doesn't have to take that money out of their own wallet to understand what the problem is and what they need to do to remedy that problem. And we can continue to seek funding. In some cases, you can identify a specific site where we think there might be a real development opportunity if we actually cleaned it up, and then apply for site-specific funds to deal with a specific site. And that would be something we would do further down the line.
Before we make this decision, though, should we know definite on the cost? Should we know definite on the consultant? Because you said maybe once we vote on it today and put it forward, we are obligated to the consultant. So should we know that information first? I mean, I'm kind of...
There's different ways we can play that. The timing of this does give me some concern. If you'd like for me to get back to you in terms of what kinds of enforcement activities associated with this, I can do that perhaps before we bring a consultant on board. I could bring back a report on that and see if there's something.
What is your time? What is your time frame? Is it a week later, 2 weeks later?
We would like to have the consultant on board early to mid-October.
Okay.
So our goal is to get a RFP out on the street, give some consultants some time to respond to that, make a selection, and then get them under contract in about a 5 or 6 week period.
So is this something that, if we do a partnership with the county, with the port, is that something that happens later? Or is that something we have to identify before we hire a consultant?
It would probably be something we would want at least early on, once we have the consultant on board. I would say certainly before the end of October, they would probably want to know what types of grants we're applying for and what the funds are, so they can do their homework and their due diligence. But yeah, we don't have to have that answered for a few weeks.
Okay.
So the point of no return is not now. The point of no return is when you sign the agreement with the consultant.
Right.
Because they get their money from the grant. If they don't take it, then they're going to want to pay.
Right.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable, like Gary said, with another little bit of time to come back to us with some more information on that aspect. As long as we have time with it, that's what we can do.
I think in fairness to it is that if you could ask the EPA, from past experience, they've been doing this for a while. If it's educational, then I don't have any problem with that, if it's educational. But if it's educational and a time frame and financial obligation on taking care of it, because some sites we already know about and we are in the process of working on those, the biggest ones, I believe.
Sure.
But in an old ex-logging town, obviously, there's a lot of 50-gallon drums of oil probably buried out in people's backyards and things, I mean, I don't know. I would probably say, what is EPA's? If it's educational, awareness, and things, then yes, we do want a clean society, we want to do things right. But if there's an enforcement aspect to this, that once they find it, then they, come in and demand somebody to do something, then I don't know, I think we should know that before we vote on it.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're seeking here.
Yeah, I just
Get
want
back
to
in a
know,
few
you
weeks.
know, you said there's 25 sites, they expose them, what's the next step? Does it go on their titles, does it shut their business down, does it, these are important things.
Sure.
So it looks like we maybe concur that we want another week to look at this and maybe get some more information. Is that,
Yeah, I do think at this point that I can see a real benefit for potential redevelopment to just having this step taken care of so that people know the potential monies they may have to set aside for cleanup if there is indeed a brownfield on their side. So I guess I'm thinking more of the vacant or unused properties right now.
so it looks like you can think about this for a week. I wouldn't mind having a one-on-one with you. I was trying to do it last week, but I didn't. Just to probably, if you find out more information, then we can talk about that. Is that okay?
So just so I'm clear, is the commission's direction now is to not proceed with the RFP until I get back to you with more information on the
I think
license?
so. Yeah, you're not, I mean, 1 week isn't going to end the deal, or, and I wouldn't mind knowing from the commission, or from the county commissioners and the port, if they are interested in partnering up. That would probably, you know, because once we're all in it together, and I would think that might be a better plan of attack, but what would you do, just call over and talk to a few people? Yeah. Well,
So I'm wondering though, I just want to make sure that 1 week is not a make or break for you. You're looking kind of like maybe you would rather have us make a decision today.
I obviously would rather have the ability to proceed. The concern is that the constraint is ultimately being put on the consultant. You're asking to complete the application to get submitted by December. At what point do they say, you know, this would be nice, but you're not giving me enough time to do the job? I don't know where that time lies, but I know it's tight.
And that's information that we should have. I mean, we should have that information. If you want to vote today, we should know that information.
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable with having you proceed today. I'd rather have you do this in the normal process with the touches. I see it's not on the calendar for next week, but if there's a split vote here, or maybe a unanimous vote, there's some, I just assume you put it on old business next week and then make a decision then.
There's some unanswered questions, maybe, you know. Okay, I think we have concurrence for that, so we'd like you to bring this back to us next week on next week's agenda, if you could. Appreciate that. All right, it looks like we have the administration report about our transportation benefit district.
Yes.
Name, Mike Michael. What's your Mike Michael today?
Today, I'm Greg Clark, but I'm sitting in for Mike Michael. Mayor, Commissioners, this is new legislation that came through the Senate. Bill 5987 was moved through our legislature in July, and there's some new language in there that we may want to take advantage of. It really allows us to lessen our administrative burden with the Transportation Benefit District in that under this new legislation, the city commissioners, you three, could act on behalf of the TBD without actually being a TBD. The rules of order here per the legislation is that you have to create a TBD, which we did, Transportation Benefit District. And once that's created, then you could move to this step, which basically you, the commission, would assume all the rights and responsibilities of the TBD, and you wouldn't have to have a separate meeting like the park board meetings that we have and that take administrative time and set up. It would just be contained in your agenda as normal business, as if it was a department moving forward on issues. It doesn't relieve any of the TBD responsibilities. It just falls directly under the commission. It requires us to have a couple public hearings to do this, and there's an administrative process, but it's pretty straightforward. There was also new legislation in the handout I gave you. As you know, we're moving forward on the ballot this fall for a 0.2% sales tax increase, if it's the choice of the voters to do that. For every $100 spent in the city, there would be a payment of about 20 cents in tax that would go towards specific transportation-related projects as defined by the TBD or the commission. So that's on the ballot. This wouldn't change any of that. There were some new revenue options which the commission talked about, a vehicle license fee opportunity. They've now changed that. You still have to have a $20 initial vehicle license fee approved. That has to run a 2-year cycle. Then the commission or the TBD could allow for an additional $20, so up to $40 without a vote of the people. But then if it's the desire of the TBD or the commission, you could actually take that up to $50. If you could get 8% of the public to sign a petition wanting you to consider that, and then it would go to a vote of the people for that. So it's just another option for revenue. It appears at this point where due course is to see how the voters feel about this in November with regard to the 0.2% sales tax. And with that, I'm done.
I just wanted to clarify that the 20 cents on $100 is $100 taxable. So
Yes.
it's already items that we're already paying tax on.
It's not like groceries.
Right,
Not
okay,
that.
I just wanted to clarify that.
I'm open to this if it simplifies instead of having a separate meeting. Of course, just, that's my first take on it. You know, I don't know if the city administrator thought about this, if you have any problems or questions with this.
Without getting into the details, I love it, because it eliminates all it does is just simplify our administrative process. Because previously, we would have to treat the TBD just like the Metropolitan Parks District, where we have separate meetings, have separate chair and all that stuff, separate minutes, separate books. This looks like we can just fold it in as another general fund department. Or maybe it's a special fund of some kind. Regardless, it gets simpler if we don't have to have all the extra meetings and the other extra record keeping. Of course, it's more complicated for Kathy.
It does.
Same
If it's not a separate entity, then it sounds like it's just another funding source.
Does that
It would still have its own bars
No.
to it, right, so that it's easy for the public to find out.
Either going to the general fund, I would assume, because that's the first I've heard of it, or into the capital.
Yeah, we're not going to change it. TV doesn't go away, right?
But it still has to be separate
Something
from
we
the
need to
public
go
works budget.
Oh, yeah.
current resolution?
Yeah. The dollars have to be dedicated
Right.
and tracked. They can only be spent on transportation benefit district endorsed projects. And I think there's an annual report that's required
Right, okay.
to specifically explain to the public where we spent the dollars and what we did. So none of that changes. This is really just an administrative tool, like Dave said, to allow us to act on TBD-related matters with the commission under their normal agenda. So it doesn't require a special meeting, and like Dave says, just a lot of administration that's unnecessary.
I'd kind of like to get Kathy's read on this before we're done, like get Kathleen's read.
Sure.
To ensure that there's some sleeper out there that we don't account for, that steps up and bites us. But everything I've seen thus far indicates that this is just a godsend in terms of having us not do extra process, which I love.
Well, is it written as an option, or is it written as RCW, that we have to do it, or is it our option?
Oh, it's a choice.
Okay.
But
And yet, was time frame on this?
It's up to us. So this is just the first take on it. I wanted to get your feelings on whether or not to move forward and looking to move it ahead. As we do that, we'll talk to Kathleen, talk to Kathy, we'll bring you back more details, and then we'll have a public hearing and go from there.
All right, Kathy?
So I'm thinking we need to move pretty quickly, because if it's left as is, we have to prepare a budget,
Oh, yeah?
and that's coming up in about a month.
Yeah.
So,
1 week?
let's find out what we have to deal, what all the, what, as many details we can work out are, and then, yeah, we need to get it done pretty quick.
Well, how do you prepare a budget on this, because it hasn't even passed yet?
No, you mean the sales tax?
Yeah, I mean, what
You
kind
have
of?
to estimate. So what I would do is I'd set up a fund, which would be the next step, to have a fund set up for the TBD, just like we did for the Parks District. And then you estimate, where we think we're gonna get in the sales tax. It doesn't mean you'll get it and you'll spend it. If it doesn't come in, you have zero and you spend zero. So you can prepare a budget for next year. It just may not, your funding source just may not.
Yeah, we put grant dollars in, all kinds of things in budgets, thinking that we might do it. And then if it doesn't come in, then we just don't. But it's easier to just get it in at the start than it is to go back and reinvent it later. And it's better planning too.
It's like a proposed, proposed.
Okay, so I guess we would know if we are or not going to do this based upon you talking to Kathy.
Yeah, we should know within the next couple of weeks. Otherwise, you're gonna get upside down in terms of not knowing how to package the preliminary budget. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, looking forward to that. All right, I missed the turn. Is there any other general public comments? We have that opportunity 2 times in a meeting. Anyone like to speak? This will be your opportunity. If not, our next meeting will be Tuesday because Monday is a holiday. And this is September 8th at 6 p.m. in the evening due to the observation of Labor Day holiday. This meeting is adjourned.
Administration.
Oh,
Touches?
oh, I missed it.
No touches.
Great, I was doing so good. I take that back.
Yes, I'm going to be putting a briefing forward to do with the purchase of a car for admin. Next week.
What?
Purchase of a car for admin.
A car?
For administration.
Yes.
Oh. Any other administration final touches?
I think we're done.
Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.